I'm Ben Reiman, and this is Behavior Speak.
It's so funny because I always tell her, and we're always so open with each other, and we always have so many conversations. But I think the best word to describe her is selfless. She is very giving to everyone, not even just to people that she loves, but I think it's also a testament to why she's in this field. She's so giving to those that she cares about, to the things that she cares about. She puts her all into everything that she does, and she's unstoppable. If she wants to do something, she's going to do it, and she's going to get it done. So she's very selfless, and I love that about her.
Kennedy, same question. What's something people don't see about her publicly?
I say the same thing, she's always, no matter what she has going on, she always makes sure that she's here to support us and make sure we feel seen. No matter what she's feeling, she always makes sure to put herself out there for us.
It's so funny because I always tell her, and we're always so open with each other, and we always have so many conversations. But I think the best word to describe her is selfless. She is very giving to everyone, not even just to people that she loves, but I think it's also a testament to why she's in this field. She's so giving to those that she cares about, to the things that she cares about. She puts her all into everything that she does, and she's unstoppable. If she wants to do something, she's going to do it, and she's going to get it done. So she's very selfless, and I love that about her.
Kennedy, same question. What's something people don't see about her publicly?
I say the same thing, she's always, no matter what she has going on, she always makes sure that she's here to support us and make sure we feel seen. No matter what she's feeling, she always makes sure to put herself out there for us.
Today's episode is unlike any we've done before. We often talk about leadership in behavior analysis, but rarely do we get to see how leadership is lived inside a family. Joining me are Quatiba Davis and her daughters Keniyah and Kennedy for a conversation about legacy, resilience, disability, representation, mentorship, entrepreneurship, and what it means to build something bigger than yourself. Quatiba shares the journey that took her from special education teacher to becoming one of the only Black chief clinical officers in our field, while her daughters reflect on growing up watching that journey unfold, and now beginning careers of their own. We talk about navigating early intervention after Kennedy experienced a stroke before birth, how that experience shaped an entire career in behavior analysis, the importance of historically Black colleges and universities, creating opportunities for future generations, and why true leadership isn't about titles, it's about the people who lift you along the way. Whether you're a behavior analyst, student, parent, or someone interested in creating meaningful change, I think you'll find something that stays with you in this conversation. Now, here's my conversation with Quatiba Davis, Keniyah, and Kennedy. Quatiba, Keniyah, Kennedy, welcome to Behavior Speak.
Thank you
Hi.
for having us today, Ben.
Yeah, I'm really stoked. Quatiba, when you look at this moment right now, sitting here with both of your daughters, what does it represent for you?
It represents purpose, legacy, growth, leadership, modeling, right? So in the fields of applied behavior analysis, as we know, Ben, you speak to a lot of behavior analysts, modeling is key. And sometimes we focus so much on the clients that we serve, we don't actually realize we're being a model to our family. So having Keniyah join the fields of applied behavior analysis and just that announcement alone made me so proud. But at the same time, I was extremely shocked that she was even interested in the field. So I think by being a personal model and figure to her, led her to this field and industry. And you can, if I'm incorrect about that, you can share your perspective on how you entered the field. But then also being a model to Kennedy and being a founding professor at her school for the BC ABA program, I'm sure that modeling is going to continue to take place. So this is just a full circle moment, and I'm so proud of my girls and the successes that they have come across thus far.
I could totally read that.
Yeah, like you said, Mom, this is a very full circle moment. I feel like we have seen each other grow in so many stages of our lives because we've grown up together. So watching you grow up and your journey to becoming a BCBA and where you are now, I didn't understand it at the time, but kind of just delving into the field now, you have been a great model, such an inspiration, and everything that you do has guided me to where I am now. So I'm excited to kind of just take it on in my own way and really get into the field.
That's awesome. How would you describe your mom? Not so much as a leader in the field, but just as your mom.
It's so funny because I always tell her, and we're always so open with each other, and we always have so many conversations. But I think the best word to describe her is selfless.
Mhm.
She is very giving to everyone, not even just to people that she loves, but I think it's also a testament to why she's in this field. She's so giving to those that she cares about, to the things that she cares about. She puts her all into everything that she does, and she's unstoppable. If she wants to do something, she's going to do it, and she's going to get it done. So she's very selfless, and I love that about her.
Kennedy, same question. What's something people don't see about her publicly?
I say the same thing. Like, she's always, no matter what she has going on, she always makes sure that she's here to support us and make sure we feel seen. Like, no matter what she's feeling, she always makes sure to put herself out there for us. And I just say resilient. Like,
Quatiba, you've said Kennedy is really where this sort of whole journey into behavior analysis began for you. Can you walk us a bit through Kennedy's early intervention story and how that changed your life?
Sure. So I started in the fields working with the IDD population as a special education teacher, but my journey extended when I gave birth to Kennedy. So she had an in-utero stroke. I had placenta previa when I was pregnant, and then I noticed some developmental delays, physical developmental delays with her as she started to progress in her development. So specific things like when she would reach for me, when she was very young, 5 months old, she would only reach with her left hand. And then I started handing her things to see where she would grip those things, and she would only take it with her left hand. But not only that, it was her dominant hand. The other hand, the right hand, was completely limp. It wasn't moving at all. And then I also noticed when she was tired, she would hold it, and she looked like it was like a form of cerebral palsy. And so I questioned. I actually communicated with her pediatrician at the time, and we had some concerns when I was pregnant due to the placenta previa. So when she was 2 years old, she had an MRI. It confirmed the stroke, and we learned that she had a stroke and that affected the right side of her brain, so it made her left side dominant. And she went through early intervention services very early at 18 months. So she had physical therapy and then also occupational therapy. And at the time, I was extremely ignorant on the therapeutic services. So, as an achiever, and I'm always willing to learn, I started doing research on what physical and occupational therapy was. And then I worked in a school in Manhattan that had a 60-40 makeup, neurotypical developing kids, and then 40% children with just disabilities. So anywhere ranging from Down syndrome, developmental disabilities, autism. And there was a BCBA that worked at the school. And the way that she reduced behaviors, it was magic is the word I would always use. And I was like, what is she actually doing? And so I became extremely interested, went back to school for a second graduate degree in applied behavior analysis, and started my supervision hours from there.
You described as magic. What did you witness? The actual witness that stayed with you.
Yeah, so because I was in a room or in a school centered around so many different varying abilities and disabilities, the behaviors that were presented went anywhere from high rates of aggression to inappropriate sexual behaviors. But when she walked in the room and the interventions that she implemented in those rooms, the way that she changed those behaviors over time, and when I say change, I mean reduce the interfering behaviors from the kids learning, but then also ensuring that they were more appropriate for the environment that we were in. But then it also increased their skill set. So we were bridging a curriculum with neurotypical kids. And so the neurotypical learners will respond to different curriculum ideas with writing. But then the students that we taught in the IDD community, they would draw pictures, they would color in response to whatever we were teaching them based on that curriculum.
Hmm. And what was happening internally for you as a young mom navigating these early diagnoses and therapies?
Struggle. My whole life has I had adversities just set before me in every single part of my existence and my professional trajectory, but then also personal. Just having Keniyah at 20 years old, like she said, we grew up together. She is my best friend. But then also being able to set forth with them and be a model to them, it's a different type of responsibility, right? So I think the struggle in it all was something else I had to deal with, right? But not only had to deal with, had to ensure that Kennedy understood what she was going through, allowing her to understand that, yes, there's going to be a gap, but it's not going to be a gap that sets you aside from doing anything that that neurotypical kid or your peer can do. So I was told by a neurologist that, she's going to struggle in math and science. She does struggle a little bit in math, but she is in college. But the idea that I received from that neurologist was she's not going to be successful in math or science, and she will never be able to walk like her peers. She walked at 10 months, right? So, you if you believe in everything that doctors tell you, I think you will be grounded in not being able to achieve what's actually possible. And
Mm.
so I was able to push Kennedy. I knew that putting her in swim and putting her in dance will actually, move her muscles a little bit more and help her to gain that strength. And so I was very diligent in doing that. And then with the two different disciplines, she chose dance. But with the dance, she was so passionate and so into dance, and it did make her limbs stronger. And I would massage her every night, but the gap widened when she had to get on point for ballet. And that set her apart from everybody. And I think it was a sense of ensuring what was more important, that she gets on point or having a high dignity. And so I had to make that choice or allow her to make that choice. And although it hurt me so much, I always tell her, I would love to see you dance again. She faced so many challenges too. And I think it's a little bit a trauma bond for her. However, in the essence of it all, it did build her physical strength, and she's made some successes through it.
Kennedy, I'm sure you've heard your mom say many times you're the reason she entered this field. What's that been like to carry for you?
It's inspiring watching her do what she does every day, and knowing that she had me in the back of her mind, it just makes me feel.
Maybe you share with Ben, because she shares this with me often, and I think it's important for her to share the late night massages, the bonding that we went through when we were trying to make your limbs stronger, and she still asks for those massages, by the way. What did that do for you? I'm gonna just extend a little bit.
Yeah.
Always wanted it in just like this doesn't really affect me outside of dance, and dance was such a strong passion of mine.
Hmm.
And so I don't know, I just felt like maybe those things would just help me like make my foot stronger for point, or just like straight, I don't know.
Why do you seek it now? The massages.
I feel like after dance, because I'm not moving my limbs as much, I find myself kind of going back to how I was before, like just the weaker limbs and stuff. And so I just want to keep it,
Strong.
yeah, keep it moving.
Yeah. So is this, Kennedy? Is this a sort of a lifelong thing you're going to have to deal with, and what's that been like for you?
I don't want to say I'm insecure about it, but
Mm.
as I've gotten older and like became more aware of the situation, I noticed like the way I walk, I get kind of insecure because I kind of like dip or like have a little limp when I walk.
Mm.
So I don't know. Now that I'm older, I can kind of tell myself, okay, like walk like this. And I feel like me thinking about it so much just kind of like puts it all into perspective for me. And I get a little like, sad about it sometimes. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Please.
just recently finished the manuscript, Conditioned to Lead, and
Mm.
it's a memoir of myself and my life and my struggle and my kids, and I think I was very detailed in that book on Kennedy's perspective because I inadvertently asked her thoughts and her feelings on it, and I think right now she's
Mm.
extremely shy because she's on a podcast, but
Mm.
in natural conversation, I was able to capture the way that she felt, but then also how I felt, right? From my perspective as a mom, with any parent, you want to push your kids to the vertex of that triangle, right? To the top. And
Mm.
sometimes as we push, we don't understand their perspective or their limits, right? And
Mm.
so I want to push her to the very end, to the very top. But what I didn't gather and my push with her is how is she feeling, right? So what I knew was dance is going to make her stronger. What I also knew is she beat the odds, right? Everything that neurologists told me, I watched her do the complete opposite.
Mm.
And then what I also knew was she got into these dance schools, right? These competitive dance schools with this disability that the doctor said she would never be able to achieve. So when she wanted to stop, I'm like, no, don't stop, right?
Mm-mm.
You're beating the odds. You are doing it. And so I don't know if that would have fulfilled me
Hmm.
more, or was it fulfilling her? But I think at the time when she was younger, she obviously didn't know why she was in dance. It was fun to her. But for me, what I was watching was her beat all the odds. That's what I was watching. I was seeing her progress outside of what the doctor told me she was going to achieve.
And we've seen in sort of a lot of conversations that your mom has been involved in, she's an achiever, she's a fighter, she's, as you say, when she says she's going to do something, she does it, and she's encouraging you to do the same. But she's not in your shoes. She doesn't feel what you're feeling. She doesn't have, she doesn't feel those symptoms and things that are going on. How is that for you at this age? You wanna impress family. What's that pressure been like for you, and how have you sort of reconciled all that?
Yeah, so again, like I feel like now in my life now it doesn't really affect me, but as a dancer, I felt like I always had to just prove myself not only to my mom, not only to myself,
Mm,
the girls in my class, because they all kind of knew what was going on. It was always talked
I
about.
see.
And so I want everyone to just understand that, I could do what they can do too. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to draw too much attention on really what was wrong. And I always felt like I had to prove myself to make it seem like I can do it.
You went from a special education teacher to becoming one of the only, maybe the only, Black chief clinical officer in ABA. Looking back now, what feels most improbable about that journey?
Oh, I think being able to bring clinicians with me, novel BCBAs with me, and more importantly, being able to be a representation to my children and clinicians in the field. As my book titles, Conditioned to Lead, I feel like my life journey has been conditioning me to be able to be a leader. So as we stated on this call, I have the ability to not stop, and I don't know if this is a trauma response, right? Because I never want to go back to where I came from. However, I never forgot where I came from. But part of my life as an adult has been a struggle in two different circumstances than it was as a child. And I'll mention part of my books here. As a child, I struggled with my dad being addicted to substances, right? Being raised by a single mom, which is the stereotypical family in the Black community, right? And then being the middle child and trying to beat the odds once again. And so, how do you do that? How do you do that in a home with a low economic status? How do you do that in a home where you grew up in the dwellings of the Bronx, right? And in the projects, being able to get in an elevator with piss in the elevator and or walking 20 flights of stairs, just to be able to study and read your books. And the one thing that I think put me outside of the rest is when I noticed I had the knowledge base. I had the knowledge base and that was my outlet. And once I noticed that, I said, okay, I'm going to utilize this leverage to take me to the different steps and the different ladders that I need to achieve. And so I also knew that I couldn't depend on anyone because my mom, she wasn't at the highest levels professionally, and my dad was addicted to drugs. And so I had an older sister that I leaned on and I depend on, and I respect her and look up to her, but she also had a baby at 16. So I'm like, how can I live outside of those odds? And my knowledge was it. My report cards were, she's very smart, but she talks too much, right? And so I had to make sure, how can I leverage being a speaker and being a guider, and being able to model to other people professionally, not quiet my voice, but actually be able to lead my voice professionally and be a guidance to other people who are on the same path or going through the same journey.
Mm-hmm. And what does kind of being the first or the only, Black woman in that role feel like day to day?
Yeah. As I state to everyone else, I look at a lot of data. And so the one thing that I think I stand outside of most clinicians I know is I'm a very data driven clinician, and clinician, and that may sound ironic, right? Because we're in the field of applied behavior analysis, and being able to be analytical is what brings us here. But what we don't do in this field is we do not take others to certain heights, and we don't back our testimonies by data in a strong way. And so being the only Black clinician as a chief clinical officer that I know in this field, it may look impressive. And people tell me all the time, they want to know what that success looks like and how did I get here and what did I do to get here. And I always share with people, it's not what I've done, it's what I didn't do, right? I didn't set limits for myself. I never put boundaries around myself. I never seeked mentorship, although I wanted it. But even though I didn't have it, I was able to teach myself. Even at this level, no one has taught me, no one has guided me. Everything that I've taught and everything that I've learned and acquired, I sat in this living room alone. I read every manual for assessments. I read every assessment manual for the psychological tools for diagnostic evaluations. I created and innovated a prescription tool for the field. And I did that by backing it by data. I've aligned diagnostic levels to IQ to try to not have random recommendations in this field for clinical prescriptions, but also have a systematic way that is backed by data to be able to titrate effectively and give clients what they need from a deficit level. So, yes, I am proud to be the only chief clinical officer covering over 50 clinics in 71 service areas. And that sounds beautiful, but it takes a lot of work. And I think that success comes from not what I did, but what I didn't do.
And what kind of pressures come with that visibility?
That's a good question. So I think the pressure is always being clinically sound and staying within ethics, but then understanding what growth looks like for a business organization, right? I think a lot of clinicians, when they own businesses in this field and they fail, is because they don't know how to run a successful business and based on growth, right? And so we have to understand that clinical quality is at the forefront of every business, but growth is next, right? Being able to be data driven, understanding metrics, KPIs, understanding how to grow that business from a data perspective is also just as important. And how do you uphold that with a consistent growth, right? Staying within the quality of ethics and being able to both grow the ABA field because we're also so young, but then also being able to sustain a business, especially when you're growing across 10, 20 different states. And then being able to support the clinicians that are directly in the field and treating the clients directly. So my number one gain or reward, I should say, is being the forefront for clinicians and not having them outside on the field by themselves. But then also the number one struggle is being able to stay within ethics as I work with operators who are growing businesses so quickly and being a part of that. But I think we do a good job at balancing everything. So, when I sit in the boardroom, it's like, oh, stop. We cannot do that, but we can do it this way, right? So just being very competent and knowledgeable about our ethics code and what we can and cannot do and not sacrificing clinical quality.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is the same when you're sort of at this sort of C-suite kind of level. And I'm in Canada. Behavior analysis is so different up here, and how kind of things work. We don't have any of this stuff kind of happening. We have 50 clinics in the whole province, kind of thing. But one thing I've heard from a lot of the guests that I've had on the podcast, particularly Black folks and Indigenous folks, is often this experience of being the only one in the room. The only behavior analyst in the company, the only behavior analyst in the school. Sometimes the only behavior analyst in the state is the feeling. Until they are able to get out somewhere and look across the room and have that feeling. You're the only executive, and so you're probably in spaces with other executives from time to time, big conferences and spaces I'll never get into, but well, maybe not never, but haven't been in. What's it like being in that position in those contexts?
Yeah, it's hard, for lack of better words, right? It's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult to be able to represent or being a representation for the field, but then being the only in the room, right? So when you look at me, as a representation in the field, it's admiration, right? It's, oh my God, she did it. I can get there. But when you look at me in a room, it's like I tend to fade out, right? So in order to keep my presence alive, again, I keep my sense of knowledge going. It's consistent. I always have to be on point because when questions come my way, I have to be able to answer those questions and I have to understand why barriers are presented. The one thing that I was taught as a child from my mom is the one time you mess up, you're going to be wiped out, right? And so we don't get chances. And when I say we, the Black community, we don't get chances to mess up, right? So I think I've earned my right and my seat where I watch other people are giving their seat. And so that's also hard for me to witness, right? So I can witness people coming and sitting around me that probably haven't earned the right to be there respectfully, right? So sometimes our color is our right. But I think the hardest part of being the only is I always have to stay on top of my game. I always have to be knowledgeable of what I'm doing. I have to be um, just completely transparent with my team, understanding the barriers that happen in some states versus others, how many people I have, what assessments I'm using, what's our outcomes, what's the licensure for this state. So it's like always being on point at all times and then trying not to fade when I'm in the room as the only.
Yeah. You talk about not being able to mess up. I was listening to your conversation on the Beyond the Science podcast,
Yeah.
and you said your failures became your mentorship. Can you tell me a little bit what you meant by that?
Absolutely. I also put that in my book. So, again, people see me as where I am right now, and it's admirable. But I was faced with many failures in my life. So again, sitting on the couch and learning my skill set and building my own skill repertoire, right? Came with failures. I put things together. I've innovated things and it didn't work. I wrote over 2,000 programs for the company that I currently serve at. And so I got divorced really early, also married really early. I had a baby at 20 years old. I took the BCBA exam and I didn't pass on the first try where everybody puts their pom-poms up about passing on the first try. So that was a challenge for me. But um, I think I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I want people to understand that failures are not losses, right? They are our opportunities to improve. And sometimes when it's not your time, it's just not your time. I think if I would have passed on the first try, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. It was meant for me to take the exam again. And so being able to build and learn from my failures also increase my knowledge repertoire, my knowledge repertoire around the field, my knowledge repertoire about being an executive, my knowledge repertoire about understanding what inequity looks like, right? So what I thought as a young child was you go to school, you go to college, you're offered a fantastic job, but that's not the reality of things, right? You graduate from college, you have to earn your way up the ladder, and especially in business corporations. And you're not the first person people look at. And so you have to make your presence known, not just by coming to work every day on time and doing the job, but doing what's required outside of the job, being innovative, not just for the company, but also for the field that we're trying to grow. So again, I'll say it until I'm blue in my face. I tell them like they don't want to fail, these beautiful girls on here. But my failures have always been my successes and it's been my mentorship. Not I'm not proud of that, but that's just where my life took me.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about HBCUs.
Yes.
You've all had experience there. You're Kennedy. You're in the midst of your own, and I had the pleasure a few episodes back of having some folks from FAMU on. I think it was episode 237, and we were talking about some of the stuff that was kind of happening there with ABA. I'd, I'd love to hear, Quatiba, a little bit more about your role as a founding professor. Tell me about that.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to go back a little bit and talk about HBCU. So being
Yeah.
able to attend a HBCU was something that I wanted to do as a child. My mom couldn't afford it at the time. So when Keniyah was starting searching for different colleges that she wanted to go to, I didn't ask her, kind of said, well, look into Howard, right? Because Howard was a school that I was interested in when I was young. And then she started to look into the school and she became intrigued. And then she found two other schools that she wanted to attend, but Howard was always her first choice.
Mm,
I wanted her to go to FAMU at the time because it was in Florida and she'll just be
mm,
closer to me. Um, but then, gratefully enough, when it was Kennedy's turn, she did want to go to FAMU. So fast forward to FAMU. I sat at Weibo one day. I was invited as a keynote speaker, and I met with some teammates in the field, and we were talking about starting a program at an HBCU. And I wanted to be able to start at either Howard or FAM because Kennedy was at FAMU and Keniyah was she was attending Howard at the time, but I think she was
mm,
a senior at the time. And I met Adrienne Bradley, and she's like, "Well, we've already started the process," and I was like, "Oh
mm,
my goodness, that's fantastic!" So about 2 weeks later, I went to Kennedy School and I met one of the psychology professors and I wanted to introduce ABA. And so I was invited to do a talk at FAM. Kennedy attended my talk and some of her friends, but then also, a lot of the students there were extremely intrigued because they knew nothing about applied behavior analysis, and representation in this field is so small with the African American clinicians that are in this field. So I said, why not? The biggest goal here is to increase awareness, right, in the
mm,
Black community and start to raise up more science practitioners in this field that are people of color. And so being able to start a program or start um, a course in the BCABA program at FAMU is probably one of the things I'm most proud of. So, as I stated earlier, assessments have always been my jam. So, why not build the assessment course, right? So, I was able to, build the syllabi for assessments, but then also the number one failure in this field is clinicians that I hire, they don't know how to assess because it doesn't
mm.
happen in their coursework. They don't know how to evaluate data because it's not trained during their coursework. So I want to be able to do that for the BCABA program. And it's part of my curriculum. It's part of the syllabi that was created. And the goal here is to teach them how to assess, how to analyze, how to prescribe, and how to create positive outcomes for individuals with autism.
Yeah. And has this program started yet?
It's supposed to launch this fall, so
Okay.
I'm very excited. We actually just completed all of the documentation that we needed to complete, and it's submitted. Students should be able to register within the next 2 to 3 weeks, I believe, for the fall program. Yes, my
Yeah, yeah.
course though is actually the last course. It's assessment and research. So they have all these other foundational courses in the beginning before they get to me. But I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud to be able to touch and be a representation to more African Americans in the field. So why not in HBCU? And then why not in HBCU where my daughter attends? So I can
Hmm.
continue to be a model, not only for students, but for her.
Yeah, yeah. And Kennedy, what drew you to FAMU?
I'd say just being around more people that are like me. Like I've always
Mm,
grown up around people who's always questioning what I do and questioning my hair and just the cultural things that they just wouldn't understand. And
mm.
so being around people that already know is just refreshing. I don't have to do too much explaining.
Yeah, yeah. And what has being at an HBCU meant to you personally?
Um, it's taught me to like I feel like I found myself at my HBCU, just one being independent, true
Mm,
hearing I mean two also hearing like other people's perspectives on being a black woman and just relating to them
mm.
in that way.
Yeah. And well,
Mhm.
tell me a little bit more about what you've learned about yourself since starting at FAMU.
Um I've learned that
What did you learn about being independent? Because you learned a lot in that area, I would say.
Mm.
just how I like keep my space, how I'm very tidy and yeah.
Can I? What about you? What did you learn being at Howard?
I learned so much at Howard. I think a lot of people who have went to Howard who are at Howard now, and it's something that I talk amongst my friends about too. You really learn how to advocate for yourself at Howard.
Mm.
And I think at any college or any university you do because you're independent. You flew the coop, you flew the nest. You're not under your parents' roof anymore, just like under their instruction anymore. So you're kind of just finding yourself.
Mm.
But I think especially at Howard, I mean, I can only speak to my experience at Howard. I have definitely learned how to advocate for myself, how to speak up and you stand up for myself. Since I was a little girl, I've always been so shy, so reserved. And as I've
Mm.
grown up, I definitely see myself coming out of my shell, being more comfortable, having tough conversations, being more comfortable networking and talking to other people, getting close to my advisors and my professors. And it's helping me now in graduate school at the Chicago School. So advocacy has been the biggest thing, and I think a lot of people who have went to Howard can definitely say the same thing. So it's definitely a shared experience that we can joke about, but we can all appreciate at the same time.
She started Signs of Beauty at Howard as well, her business.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, I did start Signs of Beauty. So the first year at Howard, it was COVID, so we didn't start on campus. So I was at home. I've always been such like an artsy person, a very crafty person. I've loved coloring and drawing, and even though I'm not like the greatest at it, it's just very therapeutic to me. I've always loved like my graphic design classes in high school. So um the first introduction I had to sewing was actually in my 8th grade class. We put on a play, and one of my teachers, my math teacher, Miss Ito, she introduced me to sewing. I was on the costume designing team, and I really loved it from there. So my mom got me a sewing machine, and I kind of just started making bonnets. So they're hair care products that protect our hair, and they're just a part of our culture. But for at first, it was just for fun, but then I kind of wanted to branch out and make it more meaningful. It's something that we use for protection as representation. And I think it's a way that we express ourselves in our culture. So I kind of wanted to bring that to everyone. And now Signs of Beauty has blossomed into a couple of different collections. So I had started the HBCU collection I started with Howard, of course, in honor of Howard and just like our culture and representing us. I also did the Divine Nine Greek sororities and not fraternities yet, but just kind of started with the sororities and kind of representing unity and representation within HBCUs, within the Divine Nine sorority community. I'm not in the community, but I know so many people are part of it. And it's very well represented at HBCUs. So yeah, just kind of a way for people to feel like themselves, express themselves, feel beautiful, and also represent our culture at the same time.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that, about sort of the significance of the bonnet and sort of the cultural piece there? I've had a few conversations, and as I learn more and more about hair, particularly in Black communities, I had a really cool psychologist on way back who kind of combines mental health first aid and she's a psychologist, and she combines mental health first aid and sort of the kind of the Black salon experience into and basically she trains salon owners to provide mental health first aid in the context of hair design, because they spend so much more time in the chair because of the intricacies of the work, that there's a lot of opportunity for engagement and sharing. And she's done, and there's a whole psychotherapy conference every year that she puts on. It's amazing. And I've got another BCB actually coming on talking about some of the things related to hair culture. So it's always fascinating learning more about this. So tell me a little bit more of this bonnet piece and why it's so relevant.
And I will extend on the nomenclature. How did you come up with the name? That'll be great to share too.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, of course. So as Black women and men, because there's a lot of men who grow their hair out too, just with having textured hair, you're very prone to breakage. You're prone to split ends, and your hair is just not sensitive, but it's a lot more maintenance. So when we sleep, for example, as simple as sleeping on regular pillowcases, the fabrics and the cotton do kind of break our hair, can make it dry, can make it brittle. So the silk or satin in the fabric of a hair bonnet or a hair scarf or a do-rag, they will protect our hair and kind of just have it be on more of a sleeter surface so that we don't have more breakage on our hair, and it also protects our hairstyle. So the way we sit in these chairs for, I think my hairstyle took like 7 hours.
Right.
It took like 7 hours. So we sit in these chairs for so long, we want to keep our hair protected for as long as we can. So it's also a way for us to, like I said, with representation with Signs of Beauty, just feeling beautiful and continue to express ourselves through our hair. And we can create all these different styles and we can express who we are and how we feel through our hair. It's our crown, and it's a big part of us. So yeah.
What about the name? How did you come up with the name?
Yes, the name. So Signs of Beauty comes from zodiac signs, actually. That's something that's very talked about in our household. My mom could tell you anyone's zodiac sign just based off of your first impression. So we talk about that a lot. And it kind of represents who you are as well. I mean, not everyone believes in it, and that's fine. But it kind of gives you a taste into what you're like and your personality and kind of who you are. So Signs of Beauty bring all about expression and representation. I wanted to bring that into the brand. So each zodiac, or from the original collection, each bonnet is based off of your zodiac sign and the birthstone that correlates with it. So, for example, the birthstone for January is garnet, so the bonnet color is red. And then for February, it's amethyst, so the bonnet color is purple. And obviously, you can get whatever bonnet you want, but I kind of wanted that to be a way for people to kind of show who they are a little bit. And if you believe in it, then it's even better.
So functionally, these bonnets are typically then worn when you're sleeping. Is that primarily what they're used for?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yes, they are used for sleeping. You can use it to protect your hair during a shower, like underneath your shower cap. There are actually products out there where the shower cap will have a satin lining so that it gives kind of the act of a bonnet without actually wearing all of those layers. Just having so much on top of your head. But yeah, it's for protection at night from when you sleep. And you can also, instead of a bonnet, if you don't want anything on your head, because some people are sensitive to fabrics or allergic or just don't like the feeling, you can wear a satin pillowcase or have a satin pillowcase on your bed instead. So it'll act the same way. It won't cause friction on your hair.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Well, it
It's
makes
a whole thing.
well, it makes sense when you're spending like 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, on a hairstyle, and then you go to bed and it's destroyed.
Exactly.
Like I often wondered, are folks at the salon for 8 hours every morning?
No, yeah, that protection is key. Yeah, so we can keep our hairstyles in for a month. Yeah. With the protection of our hair scarves and bonnets and everything. So it's really like ingrained and deep rooted in our culture, which I love.
I'd like to continue a bit on this tangent and hear a little bit more about the meaning and why zodiac has so much meaning in your family, and where'd that come from?
I don't even know. We just
So I can tell you.
I don't even know where that comes from. Yeah, Ma, you can speak to it more because I'm telling you, she can tell you your sign based off of a 10-second first impression.
It's so funny. It's a family thing, but it was extended into my professional life. So if you ask any clinician I work with, they'll be like, "Oh, Quatiba knows your sign," right? So I look at zodiac signs as the way that I relate to people. And their personalities and how to interact with them based on their sign. So knowing what they can tolerate, knowing what they don't tolerate, knowing how they would respond to you or not respond, right, at all. So understanding, oh, she's quiet, she's an observer, she's probably not going to say much, and or understanding who's very loud, right, who who will say a lot and be very aggressive, etc. So it helps me to understand personalities of people. And obviously, I'm a clinician and a science practitioner, so environment also plays a key role in the way people respond. But I think the zodiac sign is also an important factor to character and how you interact with someone.
Well, I have
So
to
when I
put. I have
meet
to.
them,
Go
right.
ahead, please. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, Ben. So when I meet somebody, the kids know. The first thing I say is, "What's her sign?" or "What's his sign?" The first thing I say.
Well, I have to put you on the spot and ask you. Do you have any idea where I might be?
No, but if you tell me your sign or your birthday, I can understand who you are.
Okay. Yeah. My birthday is September 20th.
Okay, so you're a Virgo.
Yeah.
Yep, and you are so Virgos, I like
Like,
Virgos a lot. Yeah, so Virgos are very driven. They communicate and they build on their businesses. They like to be in most businesses with Virgos that I work with, they're very driven and built upon leadership. They like leadership roles. They don't stop working. They're not lazy at all. They communicate well. They work really hard. So I have all good things about Virgos. I like Virgos a lot. They're very driven people, good attitudes. However, if you do something bad to a Virgo, it may be hard for them to forgive. However, forgiveness is not out the window. So they would ponder on it. They just won't forgive very immediately. So I don't know. Is that you, Ben?
Some of this clip I'm gonna play back for my wife and say, "Hey, not lazy, right?"
Not lazy. Virgos are go-getters. And so they know what they want and they go for it, right? They go to achieve it.
Can I? What does being a young Black woman CEO mean to you?
It means leadership.
Hmm.
Again, that word advocacy, it's definitely taught me again to open my mouth and advocate for myself, promote my business, show myself that I'm able to make mistakes and fall a little bit and get back up and ask for help, seek feedback from other people. I always ask on my business Instagram and even my friends. So we did what you call pop-up shops a lot at Howard. So what you just like set out a table, you put all your products out, and we had a lot of, I guess you can call it like a fair or something like that. So students would get out of class and there'll just be like tables all around, food trucks and everything, and everyone's able to interact with all the small businesses that are doing pop-up shops. So I would always ask for feedback. What do you want to see? What are some things that you use at home that I can, make into the Signs of Beauty brand? So kind of just knowing where I can improve all the time and learning how to be a leader.
And what lessons from your mom have you carried into leadership?
Ooh. Uh, like she said, that failure is kind of not where it stops. When you do face adversity and when you fall on your face, you bounce back, and that is the way to mentorship, and that teaches you how to blossom into your purpose and where you're meant to be.
Hmm. Thinking about mentorship, Quatiba, you've said you didn't really have a lot of mentorship and no one poured into you. How's that shaped the way you mentor women now?
I invest in everybody that I mentor. I think the best part about being invited to be a keynote speaker is you have so many people in front of you. And that's my one opportunity to be able to pour into as many people as I possibly can, because I don't always get that opportunity, especially being a chief clinical officer. So I set the rules, the standards, the guidelines, the policies, but I don't get to know the people. And so being able to connect with the people is so meaningful. Hearing how, they face adversity or what's put in front of them and how can they actually build beyond that, right? And how can they understand that they're being a good leader? I think that came up in one of my Reba talks when I was on a panel. A leader stood up and she's like, I don't know if I am a good leader and I don't know if I'm doing what's right for my team, but she had a whole team behind her. And I said, look, your team just followed you. You're a leader, right? And so even when we don't know that we're being a model or that we're leading, we are constantly being conditioned. And so I take great pride in the people that I do mentor. Currently, I have two mentees. One works for my organization, one is outside of my organization, but I'm able to pour into them. I'm able to support them in navigating the corporate world, but then also the clinical worlds at the same time, and helping them to understand how do you bridge the two and be successful. I'll say this, just as I say to my team all the time, right? You are able to grow an organization and grow within this field by marrying equity with empathy, right? Having a big heart, but then also knowing how to grow organizations. And so when you say, how do I mentor? I do that by teaching, modeling, and showing people that every challenge that's put in front of you is just evidence on how you can succeed and overcome those challenges.
Mm-hmm. And what do you hope young Black women entering this field see when they look at your family?
I hope they see obviously representation because that's important. But then also education and being able to build um, within their personal challenges, right? Or outside of it. Legacy through service is so important. So I hope that they see that it doesn't stop when you get to the top. You are constantly servicing other people, whether it's in your personal life or professional life, and whether or not you are understanding or even knowing that you are being of service of someone because you're just a model. And sometimes we forget that as a leader and being a top leader, you are always being watched. There's so many people in this field and in my organization that know who I am, and I may not know their name, but they will tell me a story that they remember when I sat in front of them or when I said something to them or when I announced something. So being very careful about how you speak, the words that you use, being very particular about how you communicate both the clinical quality that you actually want to see, but then also being able to grow within the fields, but then grow your own business if that's your goal, or be a consulting in this field. The goal is being able to do what you want to do to make the lives of individuals that we treat better. So when people look at me, I hope that they see leadership. I hope that they see that right now on this call, we are building a legacy, right? So my girls are following me up the ladder. Maybe they're not going to take the same pathway or take the same steps that I've taken, but they're creating their own legacy through modeling. So I hope that representation means that they know that they can get there. They can achieve their goals, whether or not we come from families that are completely stable and perfect, whatever that means, or if we come from families that need some structure, right? And sometimes a chaotic mess can build the perfect outcome. And so we deal with individuals that have so many challenges, but it doesn't limit us as neurotypical beings to say that we are perfect. We come with challenges too. Those challenges are just different. There are many times that my success keeps me away from friendships, right? It keeps me away from relationships. And so people feel like they have to compete with you, but I want them to prepare with me. I want us to all stand together and be able to be representation for the field.
And also, patience, I feel like, is very important. And, for Kennedy and for myself, because we're still growing into ourselves and where we fit in this world, I think we don't realize the impact that we've made on other people, on ourselves. I mean, just like people coming to me and leaving reviews for Signs of Beauty. And, I took a step back from it, but there's people who still order and like, I've been ordering your bonnets since you were at Howard and I love them and I'm always going to buy more, or just, in just going into grad school for one semester, I was able to encourage somebody else to apply to school for themselves. Actually, two people, one of my best friends as well. Or even just in my job, like as a case manager, I was able to help somebody get housing. So it's like the little things that you don't realize where you're making an impact. And just for message to any just young leaders, be kind to yourself and be gentle and don't overthink it. Like you're making an impact just one step at a time and you're gonna get there.
And it's not about titles. Like, look at this young lady. I'm so proud of Keniyah. She's leading. She's not a BCBA yet. She didn't dive into this field. She's not a huge business owner of a Fortune 500 company. She owns her own small business. She is growing in the field, but she's also leading other people. And so I think staying away from the titles too, right? And being able to understand who you are, what your character is, and what the goal is at the end of the day.
Yeah. Kind of on that, I was when I was doing some of the research for this conversation, social media is where I kind of hit, and you wrote a great post on Instagram when you graduated that I just love. And there's one line at the end. You say, "To me, there is no piece of paper, title, job, internship that will ever amount to the leader you are." Where did that level of self-awareness come from?
I think in college there's so much opportunity. And again, I can only speak to my experience at Howard, but there was so much opportunity. There's so many organizations to join, so many places to get involved. And I think those areas where I didn't necessarily get the answer that I wanted, or I didn't live up to those labels that I expected, or I was looking at other people achieve all these things and I was comparing myself to them. I eventually learned that comparison is the thief of joy. And the more you try to conform to being someone that you're not and not stay true to yourself, it just kind of sets you back even more. So looking back on my experience at Howard, I'm definitely very grateful for those rejection moments, because it definitely led to redirection and ultimately allowed me to be where I am now. I'm independent, living on my own in a new city, sort of new, I guess, since I've already been here for 5 years now. But living on my own, hopefully inspiring my little sister, uh, going to school again, and kind of just like finding myself, finding new hobbies, finding kind of where I fit in. I didn't really need those labels to do that. I kind of just needed to lead myself in my own way. And, it sounds so cliche, but really being yourself and finding yourself is the way to go.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And kind of coming with this kind of full circle moment, you're now studying behavior analysis at the Chicago School for Professional Psychology. What's that all about? Why'd you decide to follow in mom's footsteps and get into this field?
Yeah, so obviously I grew up watching her do it herself, and I already loved children. I was a nanny in college. I still kind of do it now. I mean, I love those kids, like they're my little sisters. So they're like my little besties. But even other than that, I did an internship, and it was kind of like a summer camp setup. So it was only for like a month and a half, 2 months, but that's kind of where I got more direct experience into the field. Obviously I was inspired by my mom. So when I saw it, I was like, well, let me try it. I love kids. I think this would be a great opportunity. And I did it. And my group was kind of like the guinea pig group. It was the first group they ever had do it. But I think they did a great job in teaching us about the field. It kind of drove me to really like step into it now. And now that I'm in it, I look back on, like I said, my hobbies and everything that I'm interested in and passionate about. I always tell people I went into Howard as a graphic design major, and then I switched to psychology. So I look back on that a lot. I look back on my childhood hobbies, and I love art. I love design. So seeing where I can like bridge that gap between the two, because they sound so different, but there's opportunity everywhere. So I kind of want to see where ABA and maybe art therapy or just like art and design kind of come together and what that looks like for me. So I guess that's kind of where me and my mom differentiate a little bit.
Yeah, I love that.
A little
Oh my
girl.
gosh. Yes. And we have some of the same stuff. I didn't really understand how extensive those were.
Yeah, she helps me.
But
Yeah. No, that's cool. I love that idea of combining art and behavior analysis. And there's a couple folks that have been doing it. There's a tiny bit of research out there. So I think it's a really good place to go. There's certainly a lot of, conversations even in the art therapy space in terms of, autism supports and kind of how those mesh. We're finally starting to see some it used to be that a lot of these sort of quote unquote kind of alternative therapies, didn't really get their true weight, and was kind of pushed away by behavior analysis because they weren't sort of evidence based and whatnot. We're starting to see some really cool stuff happening even around pet therapy now, and ABA, and some really neat stuff kind of happening. And so I think you're coming in at a really 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 cool time to kind of do some of that work. I interviewed someone early on. This is like 5 years ago, and she had kind of put together a whole early intervention art curriculum based in behavior analysis, and kind of doing some really cool things. You mentioned you switched from graphic design to psychology, but I can certainly see how having both of those things can be really important. Howard is really well known for psychology and the psychology programs, and I had another early episode. I had Dr. Celeste Malone on the podcast. Yeah.
Actually, just had lunch with her 2 weeks ago.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah,
that's so funny.
She's brilliant. Yeah, that was episode 75, so way back. We're into the 270s now, and she blew my mind. We were talking a lot about the title. I think was "Cultivating Black Excellence" in students, and so. I mean, you're a clear example of that, and of that mentorship. What has you're bringing to behavior analysis a background that I think a lot of folks don't have. What's it been like being in behavior analysis now, and kind of having that Howard sort of psychology training that maybe a lot of folks don't have?
I think the professors at Howard are really what shape where a lot of students are, and shape a lot of their developmental learning and everything. I had some really great professors at Howard, and I went to Howard at such a very vulnerable time during COVID. So we started out virtual, and I didn't really get that one-on-one learning, or not really like the in-person academic experience, which I'm definitely a visual person. I learn better when I'm in the learning environment, when I'm just completely immersed. So it was difficult at first, but once I got on campus, I was really able to see like why the professors at Howard were chosen for their jobs, because they really are amazing, and they really do help you. And they're definitely a good like partners just to have in the field, and with anything that you do, whatever route that you go with psychology, they're definitely just like a good partner to have, and somebody to lean on, and good mentors, because they're always so willing to help. Yeah. So even just having lunch with Miss Celeste, she is awesome. She is very dedicated. So just having her in my corner is really amazing.
Yeah. And have you ever thought about going the school psychology direction as sort of having some of her mentorship? Because there's a lot of parallels between school psych and behavior analysis, and a lot of folks with both credentials.
Yeah. No, I thought about it when I was maybe a junior. We had lunch. That was like our first lunch. And I thought about it. I was really confused on what path I wanted to go in. So it was kind of really just a thought. I never had like an interest in education, or like in the education world, but she definitely opened my eyes to that realm of psych. So it was an interest for sure, but wasn't the path that I was meant to go on. So I'm glad it led me to ABA though.
Yeah, well, I think one of the wonderful things about behavior analysis, and about eventually getting your BCBA, is that you don't have to work in the autism space.
You don't.
I think we're starting to finally see there's some really cool young folks out there that are taking their BCBA and applying it to a variety of different fields. And so I think your idea of combining your love of art and design with behavior analysis can come out in a whole lot of different ways, and may not even result in working with folks with intellectual developmental disabilities. You may even be in the, sort of art and design world. I mean, you'll probably start to see, how you can apply the science even in your own company right now in terms of organizational behavior and all those sorts of things. So really, the sky's the limit. And I think there's a lot of young folks that are getting their BCBAs now and feeling somewhat disheartened by the field and struggling to sort of make it through, and not realizing that they've actually got a ticket to sort of take them in any direction they kind of want to go. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Quatiba, what was your reaction when Keniyah joined the field and chose the Chicago school?
So my reaction on the phone with her was very reserved, but when I hung up the phone, I was like, yes! So I was so excited that she wanted to join. But I learned with teenage and young adults, raising teenagers and young adults, that you don't show a huge reaction, even though you're extremely excited and you cannot ask any questions. You just embrace what they want to do. But I'll say on this call, I was extremely proud for two reasons. One, she chose a direction because I know she was struggling being a psych major, which direction she wanted to go. But I think I was just more impressed that she chose ABA. I did not, that came out the wazoo. Like, I didn't even think that she would choose ABA because we talked about clinical psych, we've talked about school psychology. She's never even mentioned ABA. And then it was, I think I'm gonna go to Chicago school for ABA. And I'm like, what? I couldn't get so excited. I'm like, okay. And then I got the phone. I'm like, yes. So I was just extremely excited, extremely proud of her. But she did make it clear to me that she didn't want to follow my path or be hidden behind me. She wants to set her own pathway. And I'm proud of her for that too, being able to be a representative of herself and not Quatiba's daughter in the field. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Because that could also probably create its own sort of set of pressures, Keniyah.
Yes.
And have you felt any of that yet, or are you anticipating some of that? I mean, your mom's whether she'll admit it or not is really become a big name in this field and influencing a lot of people. I have had a number of folks on the podcast, and Quatiba's name has come up many times as sort of, whether it's been a mentor, an inspiration, just an incredible speaker, I mean, I think I worry about that in sort of any field where you've got, someone who's, performing really well and shining really well, and it can certainly. I mean, this is a huge field, and there's so much opportunity in this field to make your own way without sort of, the perceived influence of, sort of family and who you know. But has that created some pressure for you, and what's it been like kind of navigating that?
I haven't directly experienced any pressure, but it's definitely been a thought. I'm an overthinker. Kennedy knows, my mom knows, we talk all day. So we overthink things. We overthought coming here, like, oh, what is gonna ask? Where's the conversation gonna go? How are we gonna answer everything? But I've thought about it, and I think I'm slowly starting to just embrace more that I can just learn from her, and I can be my own BCBA, my own person, without kind of being in her shadow, because we can learn from each other. Like I said, like, we probably going to go in different directions or do our own things. So that's kind of what sets us apart too. And we can get information from each other. We can go to conferences together and speak about different things and introduce ourselves to new people. So it was intimidating in my head at first, but I think slowly I'm starting to let that go and just kind of more embracing that I can learn from her so much. And I think a month ago or over a month ago, when she told me about the podcast, that was a big thought. Like, are people going to watch this and be like, oh, she's doing it because her mom did it? Or it just kind of overthinking that idea of it. But I know my reason for going down this path, and I know, and I'm confident in why I want to do it, and having my mom as someone to learn from is kind of like a bonus. Like it's like we're partners in crime forever now in life and in our careers. So yeah.
Kennedy, you're on a different path. What are you studying at FAMU?
I'm a business administration major, so I'm still trying to figure out exactly what route I want to take. But as of now, I want to own a business and mental health therapy.
Mm.
And I'm
Well,
also doing an internship now in marketing, like business marketing. So I'm just trying to feel a little bit of everything. So like,
unpack that a little bit for me. Owning a business. I mean, I get that. I mean, you've got you know, the modeling right in front of you, and of the, you know, a CEO, a CCO up here. You know that's a possibility and something you want to achieve. Why mental health therapy? What's drawing you to that?
from when I was very young, I've always said I wanted to be, well, mainly with children. I've always wanted to be a child psychologist. I feel like I've always been very observant and I could read people very well. And so I wanted to kind of just tie that in. Like, I want to do something that I feel like I know how to do. And so I feel like that kind of correlates with my
child psychologist. I could totally see you doing that. And, you know, I think Keniyah can hook you up with a lunch date with someone who could totally set you up too.
Oh yes. Oh, that's so.
Yeah.
I have to tell her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't see it in you, Kennedy, but just even through this conversation we're having today, are you feeling a little pressure to go that direction?
Not pressure, but I feel like I always feel pressure to be the best at what I do. And because I have amazing role models who are amazing at what they do, I just feel the pressure in that aspect.
Absolutely. No, I don't sense it at all. It's just a question to ask because we're on a podcast. But you know, I really see you going your own way and doing some super cool things. And I think coming in it early with sort of that business and marketing lens, I think is gonna really be valuable for you. And I think that's the thing I like about what you're doing, Kennedy. I like sort of the path you've gone. I like Quatiba. I like that you came out of special education. You know, I don't, you know, and I'll probably edit this part out, but you know, I struggle sometimes with folks that get their bachelor's in ABA and their master's in ABA and their PhD in ABA, and those folks are great, and most of them are professors, you know, I think if that's sort of your goal is to become a professor of ABA, that's probably the path to take. But I really, I mean, I'm so impressed by folks that that come into this field with a variety of training outside of behavior analysis. Because if there's one thing I'm sure you know, Quatiba, about behavior analysis is we can kind of get into our own little funk where we think we can do all and do everything because everything is behavior and therefore we can do everything without anybody else. And I think I think that's been to our detriment and really hurt our field. There's a reason why I think a lot of young folks are leaving, and a reason why there's a lot of negativity about the field and whatnot. So you know, I think that's been really important. Can you reflect on that a bit, Quatiba?
Absolutely can. So I've taken so many different pathways. The girls know, but I'm happy to share it here. My undergrad was in business marketing. So I was a marketing major. I interned at Def Jam and The Source magazine way back when.
Yeah. The Source,
yes, with Biggie Smalls was on the cover. So way back when. But anyway, and then I had my babies, and I'm like, all right, this is not the life for me. It was a fast moving life. It was a partying life, and Keniyah was a little girl, and so I said, you know what? I need to do something where I have more time with Keniyah. And so I dove into education. I don't know where that came from. My ex-husband at the time kind of convinced me we were paying a lot in childcare. So it was an opportunity. So I went back to school and got a graduate degree in special education, a dual certification in both general and special education. And then I got another grad degree in applied behavior analysis. So I completely agree that having different pathways and different opportunities for yourself is just critical for both the ABA world, but then also just growing into who you are. Like you said, ABA, we can work with athletes and support their mental health. We can work through OBM. We can work treating clients with autism or anybody who wants behavior change. But I do want people to understand there's so many different ways that you can go, but you need the education and training. And so I would also convince most ABA clinicians to go into business, get an MBA, right? Understand operations because that's part of your world, especially with most of them wanting to be CEOs. So being able to run a business and having that clinical lens or a strong clinical acumen is extremely important. And then again, being able to marry the two. So I will say here, and I say it to my girls all the time, create pathways. I never wanted them to go to school and fall into a major that's not going to become anything once they graduate. I think Keniyah said she wanted to major in graphic design. I'm like, maybe we minor in that and then we major in something else where I know that you can get a job because I never want them to feel stuck. And I think, like you said, getting a degree in ABA at every different level kind of puts you in a box where you can open so many other doors around you if you take different pathways.
Kennedy, I know you're early in your educational journey. Kind of on this sort of thread, what kinds of things are you passionate about outside of what you're doing in school?
Yeah, I actually just had this conversation. I'd say pouring into people. Like anywhere I can pour into people, make people feel seen, loved, valued. Yeah, that's a deal.
Wow. And where do you think that comes from? Because that's a pretty wonderful passion to have at your age.
Yeah. I just know how it feels to like I like feeling poured into. I like feeling seen, and I know it's a very cliche saying, but I'm very big on treat people how you want to be treated, and
Yeah.
I like being treated that way. So I want to give that out to other people.
Yeah.
Kennedy's very empathetic. She has a big heart, a big soul, something she can take really personally. And Keniyah and I both have to support her in understanding what you should keep internally and what you should let out, and being able to just cope with different adversities that come in front of you. I think both of them handle adversity different. Kennedy, and correct me if I'm wrong, I observe her looking at it as a judgment versus an opportunity to grow. This is what's going to come at you in life. Whereas Keniyah is more of, I'm going to take this internally, I'm going to process it, and I'm going to understand how to cope or tolerate it the next time it happens. So she internalizes things, and then Kennedy is an extrovert. She'll just let it all out and look at it as judgment. So she's very empathetic, but I would challenge her, and I don't know if I've ever said this to her, but I would challenge her to be able to take in adversity and failures. Because like I said, that has grown me, but she's a perfectionist. And even with this call and us getting on this call, how do I say it? What do I say? Because she wants to deliver herself as perfect. And in this world, we're just not perfect, right? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to mess up. And we look at those as opportunities and not challenges.
I'd say that's like going back to the question from before that I got shy with. I would say that's something that I learned in college was just to like not everything is personal, and maybe it just wasn't my time to do this, but there's always going to be another opportunity or even a bigger opportunity to do something. So I feel like I've learned that about myself. It's just to just be easier on myself.
Yeah, if there's one thing you can learn, if I could go back 25 years, that'd be the one lesson I would love to have taught myself is be easier on myself. So I think it's only going to be great things coming if you can be kind to yourself early on. I love that.
Yeah.
Quatiba, tell me a little bit more about this book. Well, why do you want to write this book? What's this about?
So, I get invited to be a keynote at a lot of different events and apply behavior analysis. And so when I started speaking, my number one goal was to be a representation of being a science practitioner and talking about the science and how we can innovate new things in its field to support the clients that we work with and the clinicians that are out in the field, either not knowing what direction to go, what path to take, or if they're treating clients directly. And so I took a leap of faith last year when I was invited to WEBA as a keynote speaker. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to talk about data because I had, I was provided the name as a data driven clinician, right? And so I went to WEBA and I said, I'm going to present myself. I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to talk about being a leader in this field. And then more importantly, being a Black leader in this field and feeling like the only one because it's always lonely at the top, right? And so I don't get the opportunity to talk about my challenges and I don't get the opportunity to relate to people on a personal level and talk about personal growth and or professional growth. So I took that leap of faith and I was able to give a speech at WEBA and talk about my challenges, but then also how to overcome those challenges and what does it mean to be a leader, right? How do we lead? Are we already conditioned or is this learning behavior? And then as a Black leader, you know, we get these adjectives thrown at us all the time about being aggressive, being forceful, talking too much or too little, right? Fading into the background, and not being an advocate for yourself, but then are you advocating too much for yourself, right? So how do you lead without staying in a box and being able to speak up for yourself as a leader, but then also being respected by the people that you work with? And so I told that story. I felt good at the end. And a lot of clinicians came to me and I had two panels that I spoke on after that. And I was called the storyteller of Weber. So now I had this title
Mm.
as the data-driven storyteller in the fields. And throughout that conference, everyone was like, you should write a book. You should write a book and tell your story. You know, I would buy the book. So I said, you know what? This was another opportunity for me. And again, when things are put before me, I like to challenge myself. And I thought, why not tell my story? Not only for people that are requesting it, but for myself. So in the process of writing this memoir, it is called Condition to Lead. I wrote this memoir from the ABA principles, starting at baseline and ending with outcomes. It's about my life, but it's about my life and how I was conditioned in the environment I was placed in, right? So how I was able to lead in every circumstance in school, as I walked through this, like getting married early, having children early, and still being successful around that. So it focuses on pressure, pain, building a legacy through impact. So impacting not only clinicians, but my children, my niece, my nephew, my sisters, being impactful to my family. But one thing that I've discovered, and I shed many tears writing this book because I'm getting emotional, but I realized my true struggles and what was placed before me when back then I felt like I would never achieve or overcome those things. And I was able to do that. But I also noticed that, yes, I know I described earlier that my dad was a substance user. And I didn't know how much that affected me until I started writing the book, right? His absence and him being absent and how that was an additional challenge for me, right? And so me staying in places and staying in relationships because I didn't want my kids to not have a dad, but what did that mean for me, right? So being powerful and having the strength to leave, even when I thought that it will hurt the family, but just being resilient, being passionate and compassionate and understanding that challenges are what they are, right? They're opportunities to be successful. And so I face so much adversity in my personal life, but then also in my professional life. And like I said, I stand here proud and I will say it loud. I'm happy about where I am and I'm grateful, but it wasn't an easy pathway and I've earned it. I've earned it. And I would say that even louder. So I can't wait until I publish this book. I'm in the process of looking for the perfect publisher. But I'm really excited for everybody to read my story because that's just what it is. It's my story and how I got to where I am and where I'm heading, where I'm going.
It's a great title.
Yeah.
Like, well done. Like that's, I was like, oh, I can't believe someone hasn't written that book already because especially someone in our field. I mean, that's just, that's, for the folks outside of the field, they'll be like, yeah, great book, great title. But the behavior analyst will be like, oh, dang you. I wanted that one because
And it's based on the ABA principles, right? Baseline. Yeah. discrimination, extinction, when I went through my burst, right? When did I fall from extinction? What does motivation look like to me? What does reinforcement look like in punishment? How did I succeed in spaces where I probably wasn't 100% valued or seen, but I still had the opportunity to earn my seat and remain in it? What does that look like? How do you uphold that? And then being a mom, right? Because I hold so many titles. And so yes, it's a challenge, but it's also part of my growth as I will keep stating that. And being a model to these two young women that are sitting in front of me is probably my greatest achievement. And then the second is being able to grow clinicians. And so doing that alone and by myself is not the easiest task, but it's probably the most rewarding.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
It's a question for all of you. What do you hope listeners take away from seeing the three of you together and hearing this conversation?
It's a good one. I hope that they take away one, that you can do anything that you want to do and go any path that you want to in this world. Even if you didn't start there, you can continue there or finish there. I hope that they learn that being a leader doesn't mean like doing all of these monumental things. It can be the simple things where you guide yourself and you guide other people, and you support other people and you seek support yourself and feedback, and that you are enough. And everything you've done and every obstacle you face has led you to where you are now, and to keep pushing, and failure doesn't define you.
Yeah.
I would say that you're never too late in life. Like, your path was always going to be your path. So no matter how behind you feel or far back, everything that you do is going to take time, and it's going to take failures to get there. And so you got to keep pushing, keep going.
I love that. Your path is always going to be your path. That is
Right.
lovely. Yeah, Quatiba?
Yeah. And I'm going to just piggyback on what Kennedy said, right? That's your foundation, and you have to build
Yeah.
upon that foundation. But I would like listeners to walk away understanding that representation, education, and mentorship are so important in your growth. And as Kennedy stated, we all have our pathways that we're going to take. The question is, how far are you going to build beyond it, right? And so where do you want to go with the legacy that you want to build, both for yourself, your professional career, and your personal growth? I think having a great sense of balance is important. I probably failed at that a couple of times where I wanted to be successful and achieve and achieve and achieve. But sometimes I forgot about who I am. So being able to grow into meditation, I met somebody that introduced me to that, and being able to breathe before I speak, breathe before I get on these podcasts has really been some grounding work, set some grounding work for me, and it helps me to think. But then more importantly, as Keniyah stated, leadership and leading people are not about all of the accolades that you get at the top. And I'll say this again, titles are just that. They're just titles, and they can be taken away from you. Your character is what's important. How you lead people is what's important. How you model, right? Your everyday life, because you never know who's watching. Again, I would say this 100 times over. People walk up to me and they know who I am. And sometimes I have interviews with clinicians, and they will know everything that I've done in my life, and some things I forget about. I mean, and quoting phrases that I've said. So I'm very careful about how I move,
Yeah.
not because I want to portray myself as a perfect being, but because I know people are watching. And some of those people may be younger than me, novel clinicians coming into the field, but then also my own children. So I never want them to look up anything with my name and something embarrassing comes out. I want to continue to lead and helping them understand I'm not perfect. I am going to fail. Things are going to be placed before me that sometimes I think I cannot manage. But I think everything in my life, from my childhood to my adulthood, that was placed in front of me, I've overcome. So I'm really proud of that. And I will probably pat myself on the back 100 times. I do need, though, to be more sensitive with myself, because like everybody said on this call, if something is placed before me, I tackle it immediately. And it could be 10 things placed or 20 things placed, and I'm going after every one. So I think I need to do a better job at balance, and that's hard for me. That's a struggle for me. I think production is ingrained in me. If I know I can manage it or do it, I do it, and that outcome makes me so happy. Just be able to achieve, but other times I do forget about myself, and I need to do a better job at that, especially if I'm modeling for them.
Yeah. This was so awesome. To Quatiba, Keniyah, Kennedy, I'm best one yet. I'm super grateful that you were all willing to kind of be brave enough to come forward and do this. I'm so glad you did. I'm so grateful for this. And I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this. Thank you all so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm going to thank the girls for doing this with me. I'm so proud of them.
Of course.
You should be, yeah. They did amazing. Yeah. Wow. Cool.
And Ben, thank you for inviting all of us. I appreciate this opportunity.
What a remarkable conversation. My sincere thanks to Quatiba Davis and her daughters Keniyah and Kennedy for sharing not only their professional journeys, but also their family stories so openly. This episode is a reminder that leadership isn't something we arrive at, it's something we model every single day. If today's conversation resonated with you, here are a few other Behavior Speak episodes I'd highly recommend. Episode 76, The Next Generation of Black Leaders in Behavior Analysis with Adrian Bradley, explores how we cultivate leadership, mentorship, and opportunities for emerging Black behavior analysts. Episode 142, Creating a Powerhouse, Forging Black Leaders in Behavior Analysis, features Portia James in a powerful conversation about executive leadership, representation, and creating meaningful change within our profession. If today's discussion about leadership and representation inspired you, this is a must listen. And finally, episode 237, An HBCU First, Training the Next Generation of Black Behavior Analysts at Florida A&M University. It's especially meaningful after hearing Quatiba discuss her role in helping build the BCABA program at FAMU. Together, these conversations tell a broader story about mentorship, representation, leadership, and the growing impact of Black voices shaping the future of behavior analysis. You'll find links to each of these episodes in today's show notes. As always, thank you for listening to Behavior Speak. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe wherever you listen, leave a review, and share this conversation with a colleague, student, or friend. Every share helps more people discover the voices that are moving our profession forward. Until next time, be kind to one another, stay curious, and keep learning.